Craig Brain is not your brain or my brain. Love it or hate it or something in between. Welcome to the squishy alien middle inside of this dude's skull. Take a peek. Take a peek.
It's Craig, the Gross Goods. It's kind of fun having the last name Gross. It's fun at 43. As a kid, it was like, what's your middle name? Is? And then I would do that like, that kind of thing. I haven't heard that before. But then as a parent, I was like, well, if we have a boy, like he's never going to be able to get rid of that last name. Our daughter will, unless she wants to carry that into, like, really fight for it in her marriage. Like, I want to stay Gross. So it was like, well, that would just be fun to, like, totally play with that. Like, middle name, like, why wouldn't we put your middle name is? Like, well, because you can't name your kid. And then I was like, well, why couldn't we? And so I actually wanted to name Nolan Dude is Gross. Because you're like, okay, kindergarten, like, dude gross? Dude is gross. Like, that'd be awesome. And then my wife's like, yeah, but when he's like 40, like, yeah, it would still be awesome. I mean, I'm 43. I can test that maybe at 60, and I'm going to say it would still be awesome, at least how I see it. And so then we wanted to name our daughter Barb, because it was just like Barb, like there's something just like, and so we kept calling her Barb. And so we had called Nolan before he was born, Dude, little baby Dude. We didn't have the balls, but like my wife doesn't have balls. I didn't have the balls or the courage to really convince her that like I've convinced her on some really big things in life that she's allowed me to do or us to pursue. But like naming our firstborn Dude, we could never really call it. But Nolan, if you want to change your name, you at 18 are legally able to do that. But my dad would always say, like, he was not embarrassed of Gross, but it's like when we'd be like checking in at the Sizzler after church on Sundays, party of four for Gross. And there would be like, is it Gross or Gross? Gross, as in 12 dozen. Like every time. Black Angus, Sizzler. Soup Plantation. Oh, parents love that place too. Barf. Tristan's raising his hand in like victory. Like, no, that's like Tristan hashtag 2017. Like 5 plates at Soup Plantation. Like 2019, Tristan. No, I call it Poop Plantation. But I would be like, Dad, no one knows what 12 dozen. Like I've never 12 dozen. Like, yeah, Dad, that really explains. Gross is in 12 dozen. So there it is. But this episode, I'm talking about the gross goods because in the end of the day, we named this project the Gross Goods. And like everything, it didn't start as a project. Not everything. Some for me started in my head for like, oh, we'll do this. This idea came from getting to know a guy named, actually, Jeremy Pryor. Is kind of the main influence behind this. And he's worked a lot. We've worked on this project now called Family Teams with Jeff Bethke and his wife. But Jeremy's been their mentor, and he's just put a lot of knowledge and wisdom into their life. And so I actually heard Jeff talk about this, something that kind of Jeremy had given him. And it was just like really helping define like your family value and your mission as a family. And so this thought of like, hey, we're on a team, we're on a like what are we not what sport are we playing, but yeah, what are we doing so that maybe will help your family understand the sport that you play or the activities that you're a part of or the work that you're pursuing. And it really wasn't a hard process at all, other than like this just takes time and energy and some thought to go, okay, well, what are we doing here? And so when I talk about staycations or traditions, or I talk about a lot of things that I've been sharing on this podcast, a lot of it kind of just for me connects of like, yeah, I want, like when I talked about being angry and my son wasn't being angry, it was being scared. And so it's like, yeah, I want to actually our family at least to know why we do things. Why do we live a certain way? Why do these things matter to our family? And a lot of our values that me and Jeanette have had is like we want to instill values and things in our family that we missed. And we want to make sure, hey, when you leave our house or you think about your upbringing or you think about like you have kids and you think about what you want to do, hopefully you're like, hey, you know what? My parents did a few things right. And I'd like to carry this one over. And so how it went for me, I mean, just kind of being honest, like I was like, what are the biggest things that matter to me for our family? And so I started writing them down, and rather than giving it to my wife and saying, hey, would you agree with this? I said, why don't you do it? So she made a Google Doc, I made a Google Doc. And it was like, here's what matters, here's a story, here's a thought, here's a reason, here's an example. And then we meshed our two together. And we're like, you said this, I said that. It's pretty much the same thing, right? But, oh, that word actually explains it better. Or we're like, oh, okay. And then we tried to figure out, like, what order do we put it in? And we're like, nah, shit, that doesn't matter. Like, what matters is, like, can we articulate this really clearly? And then better yet, the thought was, like, if it's in our home, could it actually stay somewhere in our home that it's not is front and center, but is like, oh, I see it on the wall. Like, this makes sense. And our last name, I was like, let's just call it the Gross Goods. And this actually became something. You can go to thegrossgoods.com. This is just what you're going to get is our gross goods. You can read actually mine on the blog on Craig Brain, but what I wanted to do is tell you how we arrived at it. And then I wanted to give you kind of a peek into like my family talking about it. So if you go to thegrossgoodsrightnow.com, like you can put in your email, you'll get sent a video of me explaining how exactly we did it. And then I asked my kids and my wife to share one story out of each of our like values that we ended up coming up with, which we called the Gross Goods. And so my daughter was very short on camera. My son and my wife and I, we all just shared like, oh, here's an example of why when we say friends are one of our gross goods. Like, here's why. And so that's what we tried to do and hoping our kids would catch this. Not just here's another thing dad came up with in the middle of the night, but like, here's something that like tells our family's story. And it's not that complicated. It's just in normal language as well. And so that's what you can read. I mean, just kind of the high level overview. If you haven't read the blog, I ended up putting it on a canvas. You'll see it on the blog, just kind of like this canvas image that we have. And it just says the gross goods, obviously God. We talked about just our commitment to God, like why that ultimately is the center of not just what we believe, but like, man, what we're about. Marriage, like we talked about, obviously being intentional in your marriage and having transparency, but just how we want to just not just believe in our marriage, but just, man, in a culture right now that's not even appreciating and valuing marriage. Going, no, this is key, and this is why mom and dad work hard at their marriage. Why they get away when they do. Why we shut our doors and keep you out. Why like we get babysitters. Why we didn't let our world stop just because we have kids and put our marriage on hold and then come back to it like everyone else we watched and then end up hating each other and divorcing. Our value was family. Like the four of us really is all we have. Yeah, we got a lot of friends and we have extended family, but like Nolan doesn't have another sister. Like Elise is the only sister you have. And it's like, man, there's nobody else that's going to share this, like this family, and these things matter. That's why one of our staycations and traditions is like, support one another in the activities that we're all involved in. That's why you're going to her dance, Nolan. That's why, hey, we're bringing. I remember like drugging Elise all the way to Iceland when Nolan shot his first movie, and it's like, no, we're supporting each other in their things. Family's important. Experience over gifts. I mean, that was obviously part of it. Friends. I'm tired of watching like my parents' generation work their whole life, end their 8 to 5, no money in the bank, most of them, and just like a crappy retirement and no friends. Like I could care less if I have, at the end of the day, money in the bank, if I have enough to live on. But like, if I don't have if I can't do everything, but I have friends and I have my health at that age, and you have a family that wants you around, that's not like, dad sucks at tennis. Like, no, dad plays his own role. Dad's like, no, like, like, man, that stuff will matter. And so we want friends, like investing in relationships. One of the things that one of my best friends, Matt asked Jane to marry him, and he asked her dad's hand in marriage. That's what you're supposed to do. And Matt did it, and his Jane's dad, Jerry, said, yeah, I'm going to need you to get on a plane. I'll pay for it. And there's 4 people you have to meet, and then I'll talk to them after they talk to you and meet with you, and then I'll let you know if you can marry my daughter. And I was like, that is freaking awesome. And I was like, well, and he's like, literally, some of the people that I know today, I wouldn't know unless Jerry made Matt get on that plane and go do that, because it was such an impact in his life, and then the friendships that were birthed out of that. In fact, some of Matt's kids are named after people that actually, some of those families that he went and was intentional about. So you could be like, that's awesome, Jerry, that you did that. No, you know what's awesome is that Jerry has 4 friends like that at the age he is, that he's invested in, and they've been intentional about, and they've gone on vacations with, and they've been instrumental in each other's lives because they've done that. And Matt and I look at that, and literally, like, Matt told me that story like super early on in our friendship. And I think I said it to him like early on. It's like, dude, imagine if we're like that type of friends. And I mean, that was years ago. And Matt and I are that type of friend. And to have friends like that, where you're like, oh yeah, you want to marry Elise? Oh, like, oh yeah. Like, okay, let me get you up. Have you ever flown to Grand Rapids, Michigan? I don't care. It's February and snowing. Like, you're going to go see Matt and his family and Jane. And then, let me hear back from them. And if your family appreciates that and they listen to you and your friend and they value your friends, man, that's like the dream here. And we're like, oh yeah, that doesn't just happen, by the way. That's going to take leaving your kids somewhere and going spending time with those friends. And even if you don't, now our kids don't get along or this or that, it's like, no, you're going to fight through that because friends matter. Health's a big one, man. I lost my dad way too young. He thought he would live till 87, drinking 16 Cokes a day and being a full-blown diabetic. Like, health is important, and like, we're going to figure this out. Like, and we're going to work at being healthy in our family. So, we've had things like treat days. As the kids were growing up, like that was 2 days a week where you can eat sugar and you can eat that crap. But like, man, we're gonna talk about those things. We live across from Dairy Queen right now. My son's figured out a way to print out coupons to get a free Blizzard anytime he puts in a new email address. But we're like, no, that's not like 7 days a week Dairy Queen. And so, things like that matter. Money. Like, my parents never talked to us about money. My wife didn't have any help with like money. No one talked to us about debt. No one talked to us about like retirement. No one talked to us about any of that. But like, man, money, it's just, I don't know if it's the number one reason for divorce, but like, man, the problems that you'll have with money, and then when you let money rule you, or you let money control you, or you have too much love for money, and it's just like, man, it is a powerful thing. And the same friend, Matt, always says this. I say it too now all the time, but it comes from Matt. He goes, money makes stupid. And so, man, whether you're making a ton of it or you have none of it, or your desire to go after it. And I'm learning that even more now, like in the kind of relationship I have with my mom and the understanding of my dad. And, my dad's brother is a billionaire, and my dad was never successful or good with money. And so I'm like, man, like, that's just, what would that be like for my dad to be in the shadows of that? It's actually his younger brother. And then you not knowing how to be good at it. I mean, my dad filed bankruptcy, and I watched my dad when, gross, 12 dozen. But then for some reason, I heard my dad on multiple occasions when he was asked the question, like, have you ever filed for bankruptcy? and he'd have to say yes. And it was like, I was like, Dad, like, and it just kind of took something out of him every time. And I was like, I don't know anything about that, but I don't want ever to do that. And it was one of those things of like, I'm just going to catch this stuff. And I'm not been the best of it. I've made some dumb decisions with money. I didn't understand it like I do today, but like, man, our family's going to talk about money. We're going to be generous with it. We're going to be good savers of it, but we're also like going to be aware of it. And like, even one of my goals this year with money was like, I can't buy anything unless I sell something. And it's just a new muscle I want to flex with money. And this sweatshirt, it looks new. My wife got it for me, which was awesome because she just bought it for me. And I was like, it was a gift. And so I was like, yeah, because I can't buy it. But anyways, just money. And then fun. Like for me, like, man, fun. I'm doing a lot with fun lately because I'm figuring out, I think I'm pretty good with creating fun. It's what I enjoy. From the deep stuff to the shallow stuff to the experiences, to me, it's all fun. It's like, man, that's hard work, but the payoff is fun. And our family's going to have fun. We're not going to apologize for it. We're not going to throw it in your face, but it's like, no, this is going to be fun. And I want to be a part of things that are fun. Like, and figure out what that looks like versus like how to have fun. Like I was on the beach the other day on Friday, and my mom and I had just pretty like profound talk, and I was just sitting there, and there's a couple, they were older than me, so let's say they're 50, from Wisconsin. They looked like they were enjoying the sun, and it was like not even that hot. It was like 70, and they were throwing a Frisbee, and they were having fun, and they can't throw a Frisbee to save their life. And if you're watching this, they would throw it, and then like it would be like 50 feet away from her, and then the woman would be like, and she's older, like but she's still mobile, but she'd be like waving her hands like, oh, you idiot, you can't throw the Frisbee, but she's laughing like, ugh. And then she throws it, and it's like just the worst throw ever. And then he walks like, oh, like I look at that, I'm like, that didn't look fun, because if I throw a Frisbee, I want to throw it like good and like straight and then catch it. Like, it's not fun when Churro, my dog, doesn't catch the ball I throw to her because you're like, stupid dog. Like, no, you're supposed to catch it and then give it back to me. But I was sitting there the other day watching it, and I was like, I wish I could have fun like that. Because I'm like, they're coming from like a snow, it's in the, like wherever they're coming from, they're just on the beach, and I don't know whether they have money or not. They don't need to get in the water. They don't need to rent a surfboard or a parasail or do that. They're just throwing the Frisbee, which they can't even do, but they're having fun. And I was like sitting there going, gosh, yeah, finding those moments where it's just like, man, this is fun. Whether that's, I've learned rest is fun, like just slowing down. And so for our family, like we want to talk about those hobbies and the things that, man, what you really love and what do you want to pursue. And then that was what we put last. But, and I don't know, that's like, you could judge me if I say, oh, I'm going to put fun before God. Well, God's fun as well. But like that thought of like, I don't like now that fun's the last thing on this list. But I guess the other things that we talk about, man, your health or money or your relationship with God or your friends, or maybe it's last because it's like all those things ultimately are, I think, how you're going to have fun. The Frisbee's not fun. It's who you're doing the Frisbee with. It's who you're throwing it with. And so to me, I think fun's just the outcome for us to man, we can kind of tell in our family, like, hey, are we having fun here? And so the gross goods, it's our gross goods. I think I've seen some families do this. I've seen some stuff back. I've actually seen some people that have put canvases on their walls of their house too. And it's like, once again, like, steal one of my things or two of our things, but make your own things. It's like, oh no, you know what, family, we're gonna have fun, and you're like the most tight-laced, like, maybe that needs to be on your list, but it's like no one's gonna believe it yet if you're not like a fun person. So make your own, but just start to think, and I think it does help shape like, why do you do the things you do now? Hey, you know what, we're doing that because, hey, that's core to we say in our family GG, like we say GG. And that just means like gross goods. So it's like kind of a reminder because it matters to us. Oh, that's why we do it. Gross goods. So gross goods is in 12 dozen, but Dad, there's only 8 of them, not 144 of them, because that would be a true gross. Thanks for watching or listening.
Thanks for thinking through Craig Brain. This podcast is only a small summarized part of a larger conversation. To read the full story, check out www.craigbrain.com, join the Craig Brain group on Facebook, and follow @Craig Gross on whatever social suits your fancy.